how exactly does the 3S differ from the Quest 2, and how does it compare to the Quest 3? The first thing you need to know is the Quest 3S is a shaved down version of the Quest 3. Personally, I feel the name should have been the Quest 3 Lite, or maybe even the Quest 2 Pro or something along those lines, because those are much more accurate descriptors of what you're getting with the Quest 3S. Now, it being a lower tiered version shouldn't be a surprise to anyone when comparing the prices of these two headsets. The 128GB version of the Quest 3S is only $300, opposed to $500 for the full-blown Quest 3, which is packing 512GB of storage. I mean, if the price isn't an indicator to you which headset is superior, I don't know what else to tell you. As for the key features that set the 3S apart from the Quest 3, the first and most notable ones, in my opinion, are the lenses and the display. As you're about to see here, the Quest 3S is kind of like what you'd get if the Quest 2 and the Quest 3 had a baby. The Quest 3S uses the same Fresnel lenses found on the Quest 2. And while I don't feel these lenses are the spawn of Satan or anything, like some other people may think they are, it is true that they don't offer the same level of visual clarity you get with the pancake lenses on the Quest 3. Due to the way Fresnel lenses work, they have these concentric rings you can see here, which sometimes catch light, causing a flare or blurring effect to certain parts of the image you're looking at. The pancake lenses on the Quest 3 do not have these rings, so you don't get that same effect, which helps make the image look sharper and clearer. Fresnel lenses also have a much smaller sweet spot in the lenses your eyes need to look through to get the image in focus. For anyone that's used the Quest 2 before, you know what I'm talking about. How you have to move the headset up and down and around until you get the image as clear as possible. The sweet spot in the lenses on the Quest 3 is much larger, making it way easier to get the image looking nice and clear and the headset sitting comfortably on your face. Another aspect of the lenses Quest 2 users will be very familiar with is the 3-step IPD adjustment, and this is the same on the Quest 3S. Not everyone's eyes are spaced the same distance from one another, so this allows you to move the lenses further apart or closer together to hopefully help you get the lenses in the right position where you can see things clearly. I say hopefully because with such a limited amount of adjustment, there is a chance none of these settings is going to work perfectly for you. And where the Quest 2 had a little indicator of which setting you were on, 1, 2, or 3, this has been entirely omitted from the Quest 3S, along with the proximity sensor that lets the headset know if it's on your head or not. I don't know for sure how Meta is determining this with the Quest 3S, but I assume they're using the motion sensors in the headset to know if your headset is in use or not. If you set the Quest 3S down for a bit and it goes to sleep, in order to wake it back up, you have to press the power button. The Quest 2 and the Quest 3, on the other hand, both have proximity sensors in them, so when you put them on your face, they wake up without you having to do anything. Going back to the IPD adjustment real quick, the Quest 3, unlike the Quest 2 and the 3S, has this really nice slider wheel on the underside of the headset that allows you to smoothly adjust the distance between the lenses. So no matter what the distance between your pupils is, you should be able to dial in exactly what you need. The other big difference between these headsets is the displays. The Quest 3 actually uses 2 displays, one for each eye, and each display has a resolution of 2064 by 2208. The Quest 3S, on the other hand, is once again borrowing from the Quest 2 here, using the same LCD display as the Quest 2, which has a resolution of 1832 by 1920 pixels per eye. That's a total of 1,039,872 fewer pixels per eye on the Quest 2 and 3S compared to the Quest 3. For those who these kinds of numbers don't mean much to you, this means the graphics on the Quest 3 look sharper and clearer than they do on the Quest 2 and the 3S because the pixels on the display of the Quest 3 are significantly smaller. Now, I do need to say, I don't think the displays on the Quest 2 and the 3S look bad at all. In fact, I think they look pretty darn good. However, when you compare them side by side with the Quest 3, the sharpness and clarity of the Quest 3 is noticeably better. There are, of course, other differences between the Quest 3 and the 3S, but they're all much more minor in my opinion. As you can obviously see, the overall look of the 3S is different. Rather than these three pill-shaped areas on the front, you have this array of cameras and a pair of IR emitters. Moving around the headsets, you'll notice Meta has removed the 3.5mm audio jack from the 3S. This isn't a big deal to me because I almost always just use the built-in speakers, which are the same on both the Quest 3 and the 3S, by the way. But if you're someone who prefers using your own headphones or earbuds, then this is something you're going to want to take note of. There are USB-C adapters you can buy that plug into the headset's charge port that allow you to use your own headphones, as well as charge your headset with a battery pack at the same time. But that is of course an accessory you're going to have to purchase separately. If you'd like to check out this one I bought, I've put the link for it on Amazon in the video description. You can also use Bluetooth earbuds or headphones with any of these headsets, but there is a bit of latency when using Bluetooth audio. There's about a 1-second delay between when you do something in game, like shoot a gun for example, and when you hear the shot. Not the end of the world, but can be an annoyance for sure. Bluetooth audio does work great for watching movies and stuff on the Quest, but due to the latency issues inherent to Bluetooth technology, I don't know if there's anything Meta can do to fix it for VR gaming. Moving to the underside of the headsets, the big standout here on the Quest 3S is it has this round button right here. This is the action button. It toggles the headset back and forth between immersive and pass-through modes. Being able to switch back and forth like this isn't anything new. For those of you who've used a Quest 2, you know you can do this by double tapping either the right or left side of the headset to activate or deactivate pass-through. And this double tap feature is also available on the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S. I'm not sure why Meta has decided to put a dedicated button on the 3S for this, but since they're calling it the action button rather than the pass-through button, it makes me wonder if they have some other uses for it in mind. For example, in a future software update, maybe you will be able to customize this button to perform other functions, like to mute and unmute the headset microphone perhaps, or to take screenshots, or to start and stop gameplay recordings. But as of right now, Meta hasn't said they're planning to do any of this, so this is all just hopeful thinking on my part, but I think it would be super cool to be able to customize the function of this button, because really, it's kind of pointless to have a button for the pass-through when you can just double tap the side of the headset to do it. So switching gears now, let's move on to why the Quest 3S has a 3 in its name rather than calling it something like the Quest 2 Pro. The number one reason is the Quest 3S is using the same Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor that is used in the Quest 3. The Quest 2 uses the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 1 processor, which is about half as powerful as the XR2 Gen 2 chip. As you can probably imagine, with this extra compute power, the Quest 3 and 3S are capable of much better looking visuals in standalone games than the Quest 2 is. This additional power allows game developers to create games and experiences that just aren't possible on the Quest 2. For example, Batman Arkham Shadow is a game that launched alongside the Quest 3S, but the catch is Batman Arkham Shadow can only be played on the Quest 3 and the Quest 3S. The processor in the Quest 2 just isn't powerful enough to run that game, and with games like Alien Rogue Incursion and others in the works, the list of games only supported on the Quest 3 and the 3S is only going to continue to grow. Not to mention, some game developers have been updating their Quest 2 games to take advantage of the additional power of the XR2 Gen 2 processor, creating Quest 3 versions of their games that run smoother and or have better visuals than the Quest 2 versions. So I think it goes without saying, if you want to be able to play the games and experiences coming in the future, you're going to need to upgrade from the Quest 2 to do so. Now, I can hear some of you right now asking, what about all my old Quest 2 games? Will they work on the Quest 3 and the 3S? And the answer to this question is, of course, yes. When you first set up your new headset, you'll log into your Meta account, and all your games you've purchased previously will be there to download and install. And if you have cloud saves enabled on your games, you'll be able to pick up on your new headset right where you left off on your Quest 2. The other major feature on the Quest 3 that sets it apart from the Quest 2 is the Pass Thru. For those not familiar with what Pass Thru is, it's the ability to see the real world while you're wearing the headset. The Quest 2 uses black and white cameras for this, and the picture is pretty grainy and blurry, which works okay for making sure you're not going to run into anything in your room, but if you want to do anything in the real world that requires you to see fine details, like reading text on your phone screen or something, you need to take the headset off, or at least move it onto your forehead to be able to do that. The Quest 3 and the Quest 3S, on the other hand, use full color cameras, and the resolution, while still a bit blurry and grainy, is much better than it is on the Quest 2. You can actually read text on your phone or computer screen when using the Pass Thru on the Quest 3 and 3S, so it's a very nice step up from the Quest 2 in that department. As for the difference in the Pass Thru between the Quest 3 and the 3S, they look identical to me. I mean, if I were to close my eyes and someone put one of the two on my face and I needed to judge whether it was the Quest 3 or 3S solely by looking at the pass-through, it would be really difficult to determine which headset I was wearing because they look the same to me. Another thing involving the pass-through you can do on the Quest 3 and 3S that isn't really available on the Quest 2 is mixed reality. There are a few mixed reality experiences that work on the Quest 2, but as far as I know, most of them only work on the Quest 3 and the 3S. Personally, I've only tried a few mixed reality games so far, but the few I have used have been amazing how they integrate virtual elements into your real-life space. It's actually really cool. As for the controllers, the Quest 3S is using the same controllers as the Quest 3, Meta's new-ish Touch Plus controllers. With these, Meta has ditched the tracking rings from the Quest 2 controllers, making them quite a bit less bulky. Also, the battery life on these controllers is comparable with that of the Quest 2 controllers, which in my testing I've found are good for somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 hours of gameplay. And while we're on the topic of battery life, just like its older brothers, the Quest 3S has a battery life of around 2 hours on a single charge. You can, of course, extend this by purchasing a battery head strap like this one from Binbach VR, or by purchasing other battery solutions like this one from Zyber VR that hangs around your neck. Links to both of these can be found in the video description. As for the charging time of the headsets, it takes around 2 hours to top it off after the battery has been fully depleted. Now, I'm sure there are some of you watching this right now asking, what about PC VR? How does the Quest 3S compare when it comes to that? For anyone that's used a Quest 2 with PC VR, the Quest 3S looks exactly the same, which, in my opinion, is really good. Assuming, of course, you have a powerful enough gaming PC to crank the render resolution up nice and high. The main reason things look blurry and muddy on Quest headsets, and especially the Quest 2, when running them in standalone mode, is because the mobile processor is only capable of doing so much. So while the displays in the Quest 2 and the 3S aren't as high resolution as the Quest 3's displays, and the Fresnel lenses can make things look blurrier than pancake lenses do, when you send a high-resolution image to those displays, like you can when using PC VR, that's when you're finally able to see just how good the displays actually are on these headsets. Of course, the Quest 3 looks even better with PC VR with its pancake lenses and higher resolution displays, but the Quest 2 and 3S still look really good, and the fact that you can play wireless PC VR via AirLink and other apps like Steam Link and Virtual Desktop on all of these headsets is super, super cool in my book. Connecting the Quest 3S to a gaming PC isn't the only way to see just how good the visuals can look on its displays, however. One of the really cool things about the Quest 3S using the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor is it gives you more performance headroom when using apps like the Quest Games Optimizer. For those not familiar with the Quest Games Optimizer, it's a $10 app that allows you to increase the resolution of games and other applications on the Quest, as well as change the refresh rate, along with a handful of other options. After buying my Quest 3S, the first thing I did was install Quest Games Optimizer because I wanted to see just how good games can look on its displays, and wow, what a difference it makes. On games like Beat Saber that are less hardware intensive, you're able to crank the resolution way up, and I'm not kidding, it looks just as good as PC VR. Now, of course, this isn't the case with every game, because there are other games that are already more or less maxing out what the XR2 Gen 2 can do. But having the ability to turn things up higher than what the Quest 2 can do is pretty freaking awesome. There's so much more I could talk about, like how the facial interfaces on all three headsets are not compatible with one another, and when buying aftermarket facial interfaces, you need to make sure you're getting one specifically for the Quest 2, the Quest 3, or Quest 3S. And how the head strap on the Quest 3S is exactly the same one as the one that comes on the Quest 3. It is definitely a better head strap than the one that comes stock with the Quest 2, but it was still the very first thing I replaced after buying the 3S. But I think I've said enough. We've covered all the main/most important aspects of all these headsets, so now it's time for my final thoughts. As for the Quest 2, Meta is no longer manufacturing this headset, so if you were thinking of buying one of them, you're going to have to find one on eBay, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, or somewhere else you can buy one secondhand. The Quest 3S is basically the replacement for the Quest 2. At $300 for the 128GB version, it's the more economical option in Meta's current lineup. There is a $400 version of the Quest 3S with 256GB of storage, but at that point, you're only $100 away from the full-fledged Quest 3. So I think for most people, the only real options are the $300 128GB Quest 3S and the 512GB Quest 3 at $500. The great thing about the 3S is for $200 less, it's using the same processor as the Quest 3, which allows it to play all the same games, both VR and mixed reality, as the Quest 3, whereas the Quest 2 cannot. On the downside, its lower resolution displays and Fresnel lenses offer a suboptimal experience when compared directly with the Quest 3. On the plus side, whether you choose the Quest 3 or the 3S, you will have access to Meta's full games library, which is one of the largest libraries of VR games in the world. And since all Quest headsets can be paired with a gaming PC too, you'll also have access to all the PC VR only games out there as well. So in the end, which headset you're going to go with boils down to what exactly your situation is. For someone who already owns a Quest 2 and is wanting to upgrade, this scenario I find a little tough on what to suggest. Visually, things are going to look more or less the same on the 3S as they do on the Quest 2. So in that regard, it's not really going to feel like an upgrade to you. The Quest 3, however, is a noticeable step up in both terms of the visuals as well as other features. So that would be my suggestion for people coming from the Quest 2. However, if you're a current Quest 2 owner and you want in on the new games coming out like Batman Arkham Shadow and others, and can't justify $500 for a new headset, then the 3S may be worth considering, but at the same time, I really don't know. Like I said, this is a tough one for me. But yeah, if you already own a Quest 2 and you're wanting to upgrade, I think you're going to want to go with the Quest 3, because I don't think the Quest 3S, unless you're using Quest Games Optimizer, is going to feel any different to you at all. Now, for someone who is looking to get into VR for the first time, and you don't want to spend $500 on a device you may not end up liking or end up using all that much, then I think the Quest 3S is a good option, as it gives you access to all the same games and experiences as the Quest 3 at a much more palatable price. And then there's the people like me, who simply want the best standalone VR headset they can get. For us, the Quest 3 is the obvious choice. With its higher resolution displays, pancake lenses, and the power of the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor, there's simply nothing on the market today that compares to it at its $500 price point. Come on, do it. You know you want to. Subscribe!